The manifest said livestock, Uncategorized, and the container was in Bay 12 with 6 others flagged for hold and verify. I was doing the physical audit myself because my junior clerk had misfiled 3 transit tags in a row, and I decided direct oversight was faster than correction. I cracked the seal and the smell hit me first, recycled air that had been breathing itself for too long. The interior lighting was still on, a faint amber strip along the floor, shipping foam packed around a central cavity, and in the cavity, wrapped in a thermal sheet that had gone gray with use, a child. She was small, silver-gray skin almost luminescent under the amber strip, ears that came to a high point above her head, folded slightly inward like she was bracing against a sound. Eyes, when they opened, so large they seemed to take up a third of her face, the irises a deep warm amber that caught the light and held it. She looked at me. I looked at her. I said out loud and to no one, "Well." She didn't move. I crouched down until I was level with her and held very still. On Earth, a long time ago, I'd done 3 seasons as a wilderness guide in the Canadian interior, and one thing you learn is that small things in distress need you to stop being large. I made myself small. I waited. After a while she blinked, a slow, deliberate blink like she was filing something. I went and got water from my kit, a sealed canteen, the kind you squeeze. I came back to the container entrance, crouched again at the threshold and held it out, not offering exactly, just making it available. She watched the canteen for a long time. Then she reached out one hand, fingers too long for her palm, gray-silver and fine-boned, and took it. That was the first exchange. I ran the manifest number through every linked registry I could access from Bay 12. Uncategorized livestock was a catch-all designation that covered everything from research specimens to transit cargo that hadn't cleared species documentation at point of origin. There was no consignee, no bill of lading beyond the container ID. The point of origin was a station 3 jumps out that I knew, by reputation, as a transit hub for cargo that wasn't asking questions. The species wasn't in the Galactic Registry subindex I had clearance for. Could have been one of 43 registered species with gray-silver dermal phenotypes, or something not registered at all. I logged the container as received, hold and verify, pending species documentation, and I brought the child into my office. I put her on the spare chair. I found rations in the emergency kit under my desk and sorted through them until I found something that wasn't chemically complex, the way you do for anyone whose dietary tolerances you didn't know. I put it on the desk between us. She watched it for a while, then ate it in small, careful bites. She didn't speak. I didn't either. There are people who fill silence because they're nervous and people who understand that silence isn't a problem to solve. I'd always been the second kind. I named her Liz. It wasn't a nomming ceremony. It was just that I needed something to call her when I was thinking about her, and Liz was what came to mind, short, soft, the kind of name that doesn't demand anything. I didn't know if she understood it. I used it anyway, pointing to her when I said it. After about 4 days, she started looking up when I did. 6 weeks. That's how long it took for compliance to catch up with the manifest anomaly. 6 weeks in which Liz learned the layout of the dock office, which drawer the rations were in, how to use the water reclamation tap, and that the big observation window in the waiting area looked out over the transit lanes where the freighters queued for approach. She spent a lot of time at that window. She'd stand on her toes and rest her chin on the sill and watch the ships move, and I'd watch her watch them, and neither of us needed to say anything about it. I filled out the hold and verify documentation every 3 days as regulations required, logging care provided, species still unidentified, consignee still unknown, welfare status, stable. That was the paper trail. It was thin, but it was continuous and it was mine. Compliance Officer Vethaisthan came on a Tuesday, which is the worst day for anything because the Tuesday freight run backs up the entire bay, and everyone is already irritable. She was Vethian, tall, copper-scaled, with the flat affect of someone who had spent 15 years processing seizure orders and had made peace with the work. She had a data slate and a form code, and the expression of someone who expected to be done by lunch. She explained that the uncategorized organic cargo in my hold and verify queue had exceeded the standard documentation window and was subject to compulsory registry transfer. I said the item wasn't in the hold and verify queue anymore. She checked her slate. She said the item was logged as in my care. I said that was correct, continuously logged and documented. 6 weeks of welfare records attached to the file number, which meant there was no abandonment under Transit Code 7.3, and therefore no compulsory transfer applicable. She gave me the look that compliance officers give when someone quotes the code back at them accurately. Then she went to process the physical verification. She had to complete it for the form, even if the transfer order didn't apply, and she went to the container in Bay 12 because that's where the file said the item originated, and she did what I had done, which was sort through the transit foam. I don't know what she was looking for. Probably documentation of the original shipping manifest. What she found, caught under a lower panel seam of the foam packing, was a small rectangular tag made of something that looked like ceramic but wasn't, with markings I hadn't been able to identify when I'd first cataloged the container. She was quiet for a long time in Bay 12. Then she came back to my office and stood in the doorway, and Liz was at the observation window on her toes, watching a freighter make its approach turn. Vethisthan said, very carefully, "Where did you say this item originated?" I gave her the station code. She looked at the tag in her hand. She looked at Liz. She said, "Do you know what this is?" I said I'd run it through every registry index I had clearance for and hadn't found a match. She held out the tag. The markings were a seal. I could see it now with her pointing it out, a layered geometric crest, repeated in the ceramic in 3 orientations. She said it was a house registration seal of the Sorvath continuance. She said the Sorvath continuance was one of the 11 sovereign houses under the Vethian Protectorate. She said the third heir of the Sorvath line had been listed as missing and presumed lost in a transit accident 7 weeks prior. I looked at Liz at the window. The amber eyes, the silver-gray skin, the ears folded slightly inward in the posture I'd come to understand meant she was concentrating. I said the welfare records are complete and continuous. 6 weeks, no gap. You're welcome to review them. Vethisthan looked at me for a moment that stretched out. Then she closed her data slate. She said she would need to make some notifications. I said that sounded reasonable. She left, and Liz turned from the window to watch her go with the expression I'd come to read as mild assessment. Filing something, deciding something, not yet sure what. 3 days later, the envoy came. They were Sorvathi. I recognized the phenotype now, the same silver-gray skin, though adult height, and with a formal bearing that made the dock bay feel like it had dressed down for the occasion. There were 2 of them, and they had a document case, and they were very polite. They didn't ask to take her. That was the thing I'd been braced for quietly for 3 days, and it didn't happen. What they presented instead was a formal registration under the Sorvath Continuance Legal Code, a document I'd never heard of and hadn't known existed, something that translated through the Vethian Index as Ward Keeper of the Third Heir, a title that apparently carried with it certain diplomatic standing, and a set of mutual obligations I was going to need to read very carefully. Liz stood beside my chair while the envoy explained this. She wasn't holding my hand. She was just standing close the way she'd been doing for 6 weeks, the way small things stand close to something they've decided is reliable. I signed the document. The envoy inclined their head in a way that communicated something I didn't have the cultural vocabulary for yet, though I suspected I was going to learn it. After they left, Liz went back to the observation window. A Heraxi bulk carrier was making its turn into the approach lane, big as a city block, running lights blinking in sequence. She watched it until it cleared the transit marker, then she looked back at me. I'd called her uncategorized once in the paperwork, just to have something to write in the field. That had been a long time ago. 6 weeks is a long time when someone's measuring it in daily rations and welfare logs, and the particular way a child learns to trust the sound of your chair pushing back from the desk. I pulled the paperwork toward me and started reading.